Your silence becomes your power as you realize that you are not at the mercy of your impulses or the pressure of external influences. You are in control of your own narrative. Silence also allows you to build a deeper connection with yourself. It's in those quiet moments, away from the distractions and the demands of life, that you discover who you really are. You uncover your true desires, your passions, and your fears. You come to understand your purpose and your values. When you stop filling the silence with external noise, you start to hear your own voice clearly. And when you can hear your own voice, you can begin to live authentically. You stop seeking validation from others and start validating yourself. The beauty of silence is that it doesn't require you to do anything. It doesn't demand anything from you except for you to be present. In this state of presence, everything begins to align naturally. You stop trying to force things into existence and allow them to come to you as they are meant to. When you let go of the need to control every aspect of your life, you create space for new things to flow into your world. You open yourself up to serendipity, to synchronicity, to those beautiful moments when life just seems to work in your favor. In silence, you are also able to cultivate a sense of inner peace. The world can be chaotic, unpredictable, and overwhelming. But in your silence, you create a sanctuary, a space of calm and tranquility where you can center yourself and regain your equilibrium. You come to realize that peace is not found in external circumstances, but in your ability to remain grounded no matter what is happening around you. In silence, you cultivate the strength to stay centered amidst the chaos. When you stop trying to control everything, you begin to experience life as it is, not as you wish it to be. You stop resisting the flow of life and begin to move with it. You start to notice the beauty in the little things, the lessons in the challenges, and the magic in the ordinary. Everything starts to feel like it is falling into place, and you realize that you never needed to chase after anything in the first place. All that you needed was to trust, to be patient, and to remain silent. By staying silent, you allow the world to reveal itself to you. You allow life to unfold in its own time, at its own pace. You stop forcing, stop striving, and simply let go. And in that letting go, everything will come to you. In that letting go, you begin to sense the rhythm of life. You become more attuned to the seasons, not just of the earth, but of your own growth. You begin to notice when it's time to move and when it's time to be still, when it's time to plant and when it's time to harvest. You stop resisting these seasons and instead begin to flow with them. Silence becomes your compass, guiding you not through noise or urgency, but through a quiet awareness of what is unfolding within and around you. There's a deep intelligence in silence, one that goes beyond logic or calculation. It's the kind of wisdom that whispers instead of shouts. It's not reactive, it's intuitive. When you're silent, your intuition has space to speak. And that voice inside you, it already knows. It knows which direction feels right. It knows which people belong in your life. It knows what's meant for you. But it can only be heard when the noise dies down. When the performance ends, when the pretending stops, in silence, the truth becomes unmistakably clear. Silence is also where healing happens, not just physical healing, but emotional and spiritual healing. When you stop running from yourself, when you stop filling your life with distractions, you finally face the parts of yourself that you've ignored or suppressed. And though that can be uncomfortable, it is also incredibly liberating. You confront your wounds, you sit with your grief, you forgive your past. And in that stillness, you begin to release what no longer serves you. You notice the way energy shifts in a room, the way people reveal their truth without saying a word, the way nature speaks in patterns, seasons, and rhythm. You stop needing constant confirmation because you start to feel things at a deeper level. You realize that not everything is meant to be explained, debated, or even understood right away. Some things are meant to be felt. Some things are meant to unfold slowly. Without interference, without pressure, in silence, you find patience. Not the kind that's forced or performed, but the kind that comes from knowing you are exactly where you need to be. You stop rushing toward the future, desperate to escape the present, and instead begin to savor the now. You begin to walk at your own pace, speak at your own volume, and live according to your own truth. You are no longer dictated by the noise outside of you. You are led by the peace within you. And in that peace, your creativity begins to rise. Ideas come to you not because you chased them, but because you created space for them to land. Answers begin to appear because you stop forcing solutions. The most powerful realizations don't arrive when you're shouting at life to give you clarity. They arrive in the calm when you're quiet enough to hear the whisper of your own intuition. That's when the real breakthroughs happen, not in chaos, but in stillness. There's a sacred kind of confidence that comes from being still. Not because you have all the answers, but because you trust yourself enough to wait for them. You're no longer addicted to reacting. You're no longer obsessed with filling every silence with words. You realize that power isn't in constantly speaking. It's in knowing when not to. It's in knowing that your silence is a form of alignment, that your restraint is not weakness. It's wisdom. When you stay silent, your energy becomes more potent. You start to do less, but everything you do carries more weight. You start to say less, but every word you say lands deeper. You stop over-explaining, overthinking, and overcommitting. You conserve your energy for the things that matter. And because of that, you begin to attract more. Not through chasing, but through magnetism. You become a force without needing to force anything. The world will try to pull you in 1,000 directions. It will try to convince you that silence means passivity, that stillness means you're falling behind. But when you stay rooted, when you choose not to engage in every argument, not to respond to every opinion, not to validate every attack, you gain strength. You realize that not everything deserves your reaction. Not everything needs your voice. Some things are better left unanswered, not out of fear, but out of power. The ones who master silence are the ones who master themselves. Because silence reveals your triggers. It shows you where you still seek approval, where you still carry wounds, where your ego still needs soothing. And in that awareness, you find growth. You begin to let go of your need to control, your need to be right, your need to be heard. You stop trying to prove your worth and start embodying it. There's a difference between silence born from fear and silence born from power. The first shrinks you. The second expands you. The first hides your truth. The second protects your energy. The first comes from insecurity. The second comes from awareness. When you stay silent from a place of strength, you move differently. You no longer chase closure. You no longer seek revenge. You no longer crave recognition. You simply keep rising quietly. You become more observant. You begin to see the patterns of life repeating themselves. You start to notice how people reveal themselves with time, how truth always finds its way to the surface, how the universe responds to energy more than effort. And so you become intentional with where you place your attention. You guard your focus like treasure. Because now you know that where your attention goes, your energy flows. Your silence becomes sacred. It becomes your sanctuary in a world that thrives on overstimulation, distraction, and constant noise. Your silence becomes your rebellion. It becomes the place where you recharge, where you reconnect with your source, where you remember who you are. In silence, you realize you are not your status, your achievements, or your appearance. You are something much deeper. Something that doesn't need to be seen to be real. Something that doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. Silence allows you to reset, to step away from the noise and ask yourself, what do I truly want? Not what others expect from me, not what looks good from the outside, but what feels aligned with my soul. What makes me feel whole, even if no one else understands it. These answers don't come in chaos. They come in calm. They come in solitude. They come when you stop talking and start listening. You begin to unlearn the belief that you need to announce every goal, share every win, or prove every step. You begin to value privacy, not out of secrecy, but out of sacredness. You protect your process. You let your work speak for itself. And because of that, everything you build has a stronger foundation. It's not built on noise. It's built on presence. It's built in silence. Even when challenges arise, you face them with a different energy. You don't panic. You pause. You observe. You listen to what the moment is trying to teach you before you respond. You understand that not every challenge needs to be solved immediately. Some need to be observed. Some need to be felt. Some need to be surrendered to. And the more you surrender, the more you realize that control was never the goal, clarity was. When you stay silent long enough, you begin to understand that most things aren't personal. Most things are projections. Most criticisms are reflections of someone else's inner turmoil. And so you stop taking on what isn't yours. You stop internalizing noise that was never meant for you. You stop carrying burdens that aren't aligned with your past. You learn to release with grace, to detach with peace, and to protect your energy with fierce gentleness. The deeper you go into silence, the more you start to appreciate presence. You find beauty in the small things, in the warmth of the sun, in the stillness of the morning, in the way the wind carries its own rhythm. You stop rushing through life trying to reach the next thing and start living in the moments in between. You start realizing that this right here, right now, is the miracle you've been chasing. You begin to feel whole without needing anything to complete you. You begin to feel worthy without needing anyone to validate you. You begin to feel powerful without needing to dominate. Because true power doesn't come from being seen. It comes from being aligned. It comes from knowing who you are, even when no one else is watching. And the more aligned you become, the more you realize how little you need to do. You no longer chase opportunities. You create them through presence. You no longer seek external affirmation. You generate internal conviction. You no longer try to force your way forward. You simply move with grace, trusting that everything meant for you will find you when you are quiet enough to receive it. If you'd like me to continue the speech, just let me know. I'm ready to keep flowing with this tone and message. And as you continue to move through life in silence, you notice that the weight you used to carry begins to lift. The pressure to always perform, to always be on, to always prove your worth starts to dissolve. You no longer wake up with the urgency to fight for space in a world that thrives on noise. You begin to wake up with a deep sense of purpose that doesn't require validation. Your mornings become sacred, your actions intentional, your words rare and full of presence. You start to realize that silence is the space between thoughts where your greatest insights arise. It's the moment right before a decision, the breath before the leap, the stillness before momentum takes over. You begin to cherish those pauses, those quiet places where the noise of the world fades and your inner knowing surfaces. In those moments, you remember that you are guided, not by others, not by fear, but by something deep within. A compass that doesn't make noise but always points true. When you're silent, you no longer need to explain your journey to those who can't see your vision. You stop defending your path to those who are not meant to walk it. You no longer need to react when you're misunderstood, because you're grounded in your own truth. You realize that silence is not your lack of words, it's your clarity in knowing which ones are worth speaking. You begin to notice how often the world speaks in fear. The loudest voices are often the most afraid of being forgotten, unseen, unheard. But when you move in silence, you operate from love, not fear. You're not afraid of being invisible because you know that visibility is not what gives you value. You're not desperate to be understood because you've made peace with your own understanding. You don't shout over others to be heard because you've cultivated the ability to hear yourself. There's a kind of magic in this way of living. You stop needing to announce your transformation because those meant to see it will feel it. You stop needing to broadcast your intentions because your energy begins to speak for you. You stop forcing outcomes, and things begin to align, seemingly effortlessly. But it's not effortless, it's intentional. It's the result of you no longer being distracted by every impulse to act, speak, or defend. It's the quiet power of being so rooted that your mere presence changes the room. In this silence, your discernment sharpens. You begin to separate what is real from what is noise. You become better at recognizing what aligns with your soul and what doesn't. You learn to trust how things feel instead of just how they look. You stop moving toward things that only look good from the outside and start choosing what nourishes you from the inside. Your silence becomes your filter, your protection, your guide. And the more you protect your peace, the more peace begins to define your life. You start to realize how much of your stress was coming from trying to control everything, trying to meet expectations, trying to live up to ideas that weren't even yours. Silence helps you release all of that. It brings you back to simplicity, to essence, to what truly matters. And suddenly, things that used to seem important start to fade. The approval, the comparisons, the competition, it all loses its grip on you. You find yourself seeking less, wanting less, needing less, not because you've given up. You've realized that everything you're truly looking for is already within you. And in that realization, your energy shifts. You become lighter, more present, more powerful. You move through the world with grace, with calm, with a quiet kind of certainty that can't be shaken. And even in moments of chaos, you remain anchored. The storm may rage around you, but you've built a sanctuary within yourself. You've trained your nervous system to rest in stillness. You've learned that your silence is your strength, not your submission. That waiting is not weakness, it's wisdom. That space is not emptiness, it's sacred. You stop rushing into things. You allow time to do what it's meant to do. You allow growth to happen in the dark, in the quiet, in the unseen. You begin to feel a deeper connection with time itself. You stop fighting against it and start flowing with it. You no longer need things to happen on your schedule. You begin to trust in divine timing, in the natural rhythm of your life. You learn to wait without anxiety, to hope without attachment, to move without resistance. And in doing so, you discover a whole new pace of living, one that is aligned, intentional, and deeply satisfying. You also begin to see how much more you receive when you're silent. Opportunities come not because you chased them, but because you became ready to receive them. Relationships deepen because you're present enough to truly listen. Wisdom finds you because you've cleared space for it. Joy becomes more available because you're not distracted by the next thing. Silence allows you to live fully in the now, and in the now, everything becomes enough. You discover that presence is a superpower. When you're fully here, when you're not caught in the past or future, life starts to unfold in ways that feel almost miraculous. You begin to notice beauty where you used to see routine. You find depth in moments that used to pass you by. And all of this happens not because you did more, but because you became more still. You stopped rushing and the world met you in that stillness. In silence, you reclaim your power. You stop giving it away through unnecessary explanations, through reactive words, through misplaced energy. You realize that not everyone needs access to you. Not every thought needs to be shared. Not every emotion needs to be acted on. You become more intentional, more discerning, more whole. You stop scattering your energy and start gathering it. And in that gathering, your power amplifies. You begin to see that growth isn't always loud. It doesn't always announce itself with grand gestures or visible milestones. Sometimes growth looks like holding your tongue when you used to lash out. Sometimes it's walking away without fanfare. Sometimes it's choosing peace over proving your point. These are the silent victories that no one claps for, but they are the ones that change everything. They shift your inner world, and eventually your outer world begins to reflect that shift. In this silence, you start to create from a different place. You're no longer creating out of desperation or to impress others. You're creating because it's what your soul wants to do. You're building not for attention, but for alignment. Your goals begin to change. You no longer chase what's shiny. You pursue what feels right. Your definition of success evolves. It's no longer about visibility, popularity, or even recognition. It becomes about peace, about alignment. About waking up each day and feeling whole, without needing anyone or anything to fill a gap inside of you. And the beautiful part is, once you stop trying so hard to be heard, the world begins to lean in. When you're silent, people start to notice your energy more than your words. They sense the depth of your presence, the clarity of your intention, the weight of your stillness. You don't need to convince anyone anymore. You don't need to be loud to be seen. You just need to be real. And silence brings you back to what's real. It brings you back to your breath, to your body, to your instincts, to that space behind your thoughts where truth lives untouched. It brings you back to the moments you used to rush through, the ones that now hold the most beauty, the way light moves through a room, the comfort of your own heartbeat, the way a single breath can shift your entire state of being. These small, quiet details become your teachers. They begin to guide you more than the voices you once depended on. In silence, you no longer seek escape. You stop trying to avoid discomfort. You stop distracting yourself from your feelings. Instead, you face them. You sit with them. You listen to what they have to say. And in that listening, you begin to heal. You begin to integrate. You stop being afraid of your emotions and start learning from them. You no longer label things as good or bad. You just see them as parts of your journey. And this simple shift changes everything. You become more compassionate with yourself. You stop punishing yourself for not having it all figured out. You stop holding yourself to impossible standards. You begin to accept that growth is messy, nonlinear, and deeply personal. Silence helps you embrace your humanity instead of running from it. You no longer shame yourself for needing rest. You no longer feel guilty for pulling back. You begin to understand that your worth isn't tied to your productivity, and that healing doesn't always look like progress. Sometimes, healing is simply being still and allowing yourself to be. This silence becomes your home, the place you return to when the world gets too loud, when opinions flood your mind, when the pressure feels unbearable. You close your eyes, you breathe, you return to the quiet, and in that quiet, you remember your strength. You remember that you are not here to compete, to compare, or to convince. You are here to be, to grow, to love, to live deeply and truthfully and beautifully, even if no one ever sees the full picture of what that means for you. You stop measuring your life by what's visible. You stop needing milestones to validate your path. You begin to understand that some of your most profound growth will never be seen by others. It will happen in your thoughts, in your habits, in the way you talk to yourself, in the way you soften instead of harden, in the way you respond with grace when chaos calls, in the way you choose peace even when you're invited to war. You become fluent in your own energy. You know what environments drain you, what conversations feed you, what habits center you, and you begin to move accordingly. You stop trying to explain why you're not showing up everywhere. You stop justifying your boundaries. You stop apologizing for protecting your peace. Because now you understand, peace is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And silence is its foundation. With time, you begin to notice the power of letting go, of not having the last word, of not chasing closure, of not needing to control every outcome. You realize that silence can be the most loving response you give, not to punish, but to preserve, to honor your own inner world, to say, I value my energy too much to waste it here. And that kind of silence speaks louder than anything you could ever say. You begin to see how silence reveals character, not just in others, but in yourself. In moments of stillness, your values rise to the surface. You begin to act from alignment, not emotion, from integrity, not ego. You no longer let temporary feelings dictate permanent actions. You breathe. You wait. You move with intention. And in doing so, you change your entire trajectory, not through force, but through presence. This way of being touches everything you do. It makes your relationships deeper, your work more focused, your creativity more inspired, your decisions more clear. You no longer feel the need to be everywhere, to do everything, to say something all the time. You just focus on what truly matters, and you give that your full presence. And in that giving, you receive more than you ever did while trying to force outcomes. There is a beauty in this quiet living that cannot be explained. It can only be experienced. It's not something you achieve. It's something you allow, something you surrender to. It's not about getting it right all the time. It's about being honest with yourself, listening when your body says rest, stepping away when your spirit feels heavy, creating space not just for others, but for yourself, for your own becoming. And you begin to understand that becoming is not a performance. It's a return to what you've always known, but maybe forgot in the noise. A return to the truth that you don't have to earn your worth, that you don't have to shout to be valuable, that you don't have to be loud to be seen. You simply have to be aligned, still, true. And everything that is meant for you will come, not through chasing, but through your quiet, unwavering presence. You begin to live life as a witness instead of always being a participant in the chaos. You observe without reacting. You listen without immediately responding. You sit with your thoughts before acting on them. In that space between impulse and action, between emotion and expression, you create a new kind of life, one built not on reflex, but on reflection. You no longer jump into every storm that passes. You learn to watch the clouds roll in, knowing that not everyone requires your attention. And in that restraint, in that patience, you become more powerful than ever. You begin to see how energy flows. You notice when something feels heavy, when someone's presence drains you, when a conversation shifts your frequency. And instead of pushing through, instead of ignoring those signs, you step back. You don't owe the world constant availability. You don't owe anyone access to your peace. Your silence becomes your shield, not from others, but from everything that seeks to pull you out of alignment. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care more, but with wisdom. It means you care with discernment, with purpose. You stop pouring yourself into places that cannot hold you. You stop giving explanations to those committed to misunderstanding you. You realize that the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all, because silence is never empty. It's full of presence, full of self-respect, full of unspoken truth. You start to realize that those who move in silence are often those with the most depth. The ones who aren't seeking attention because they're rooted in purpose. The ones who don't need to speak loudly because their life speaks for them. And that becomes your path. Not to impress, not to persuade, but to embody. You begin to live in such a way that your energy tells the story your words never need to. That your actions reflect the clarity you've cultivated in your stillness. And when pain comes, you greet it differently. You don't run from it. You don't try to numb it with distractions. You sit with it. You listen to it. Because silence has taught you that even pain has wisdom. That suffering has messages. That grief is not something to escape, but something to move through. You allow yourself to feel deeply without becoming consumed. You allow your heart to break open and still beat with purpose. You find resilience not in noise, but in stillness. Not in denying your experience, but in fully inhabiting it.